My name is Netty Nihom. My maiden name is Jacobs. I was born in Hengelo, that's Hengelo, in the province of Gelderland in Holland. I give you the province because there are two Hengelos there. Where I am from, it was a very small village. And, yeah, how do I explain it? My mother was very, very Orthodox. She was fanatic.
And your father?
Orthodox, but not fanatic. And I couldn't have friends. For heaven forbid, if I would go to their house and had a cookie. You know, things like that. They always had a nice childhood. No, it wasn't nice. My parents were very good, but that wasn't nice. But then the people found out, this you probably don't want to hear, that we had running water. And in that village were only 3 houses with running water. And they, after school, they want, can I come with you? I have to go to the toilet. They didn't know one of flush toilets. That's when I got some friends. So.
What profession did your father have?
We had a store, a merchant.
Did your mother work with your father in the store?
My mother worked in the store, and my father worked in a small village. You go to the farmers, they don't come to you. And you take samples and you sell it, and then later on you bring it to them. But if people came to the store, my mother was there.
But your father took the samples to the people's homes.
Yeah.
Do you have siblings?
I had one brother, and he got picked up in a razzia in October of 41. Went to Mauthausen. And by the end of October, he died. On one way, I think that was good because he didn't suffer too long.
But he died in Mauthausen?
Mauthausen, yeah.
So you had pretty much of a religious background.
I don't believe in anything anymore.
I can understand that.
Because when I look at my Orthodox relatives, they didn't come back. Then I think, why? And I think, too, if there was a God, what they say, how good he is, this wouldn't have happened.
Right. Some people I've interviewed said the reason they survived is because they believe in God.
Yeah, I know.
And then there are others that say God turned his face away.
Yeah.
And they no longer believe in God.
I once talked to an Orthodox rabbi, and he said that's normal. People that go into the camps, Orthodox come out non-believing, and when they go in, so little bit, come out Orthodox.
That's interesting. Did you have extended family in that area? Extended family, your mother's family, or your
My mother
family?
was one of 8, and my father was one of 8. And there was one sister of my father came back, and a brother of my mother. But that brother didn't live in Europe. He lived in America. So no wonder he was still there. And then I don't know how many cousins I lost. And then, of course, my parents had lots of cousins. And let's see, who do I know that came back? I think 3. And I don't know how many there were.
3 out of how many? 3 out of many.
Yes, 3 out of many.
And did you notice any anti-Semitism when you were going to school?
No. We didn't have any, in that village, no anti-Semitism.
When did you sense that trouble was happening, that, that the Germans were coming in?
Don't forget, I was a teenager. I knew what was happening. If you're a child, you don't know.
But you
I was 13 when they came in to Holland. So, yeah, I know it.
Did you live anywhere near Utrecht? Utrecht.
Utrecht?
Yeah.
No, not too close, but I've been there. But you know Utrecht?
Oh, I know that I interviewed a righteous Gentile that saved a Jewish boy in Utrecht. And, of course, they risked their lives.
Yeah, I know they risked their lives.
In protecting...
Then I wonder, would we have done the same?
It's a big risk. Knowing that the entire family could be lost, could be killed.
My husband was in hiding. We say with the old man, because he had children. They were all married, and they all had people. That family had 28 Jews.
Wow.
At one time?
But I was never in hiding with the family.
What is your story about that period, that very period?
Where
were you?
I was in hiding for a year in the dungeons of a castle. And we were with 15 people there.
Did you know all the people that you were hiding with?
I got to know them when 6 of us went in together. That were my parents and me and my aunt with 2 of my cousins. But the others we got to know, of course. If you live not a room not bigger than this, and she lived there for a year together. And we had all different backgrounds, and so. But it went okay until a doctor came. And he said, we have to get out once in a while, there's no fresh air whatsoever. And we got our food through a little trapdoor like this. And most of us could get out through that. And my father couldn't. So when we got into the dungeons, there was they had dug something from a fireplace that you could pull out, and there was dug that they could walk to the dungeon, and after we were there, they filled it all up. So my father couldn't get out, so they made a passageway again, and he went out an evening or a night with 3 little boys around 10. Never saw them again. Somebody must have known what was going on. So we were all afraid that the boys who had their mothers in the dungeon would talk, but they didn't talk. And then we had to leave, of course, and we couldn't, because that castle was in our village. Couldn't put my nose outside. And there was one farm said, they can be in my hayloft. That's just the 4 of us, my mother and my aunt, my cousin and me. And 4 of us could stay there for 3 days. And lawnmower. And then after that, a doctor came, who was the only one that had a car, and he brought us to a hunting hut. From now on, we always were with 4. My mother, my aunt, and my girl cousin and I, we were about the same age. And then we found out at weekend that the young people used to have to make out. And there we were. So they put a chicken coop in the forest, deep in the forest. And we were in there 6 or 7 months. And they would bring us food early in the morning so that we didn't see them. Would be outside. And that year the snow came very, very early. And there was one Nazi was hunting in that forest where he didn't have any business being because it was private property, but they didn't care. And he saw footsteps, in the snow. So he followed it, and he saw that chicken coop, and he heard that there were people. And then he went back again, and the next morning he came with 18, and they all had guns. That's how they caught us. And we were about 3 days in county jail. And then they took us to a prison. And while they were taking us from one place to another, the English saw that convoy and shot on it from the plane. And the Germans went out, locked us in the trucks, and they went away. But nothing happened. So then we were in prison for a couple of weeks. And this was funny. The food was horrible. But there was one guard, he was nice. He said, whatever you do, eat your food on Sunday. He said, I said too much already. So we ate that miserable food on Sunday, all of it. And all the prisoners that finished their food got a decent meal. Wow. When you're full, you got it, but at least you got something that tasted good. And from there, we went to Camp Westerbork. There were 7 people on the back seat of a sedan, with a driver and a guard in front. And these 2 were new, and they couldn't find the camp. So we have been driving around and around and around. The 7 people on in the back seat. But we were lucky. When we got there, the commander was not there, was on vacation. So we were not interrogated. Otherwise you would, if you had been hiding, you were interrogated because they wanted names. And what I heard from other people, if they interrogate you and you don't give the answer, they want to take a nail and push it under your nail. Wow. Sounds awful, huh?
Wow.
Yeah.
That hurt. That must hurt. That must hurt.
That must hurt. So they put us in a barrack. And they told us where we slept. You sleep here and you sleep there. And we were so envious of my aunt. She had a lower bunk. And the 3 other ones had a higher bunk. Until the night. She had a bedwetter above her. Oh. And you're not allowed to move. So. And the first work I did was in the potato kitchen. It was 12 hours peeling potatoes, but you didn't see yourself, of course. And I got a blister. And the blister opened, because you have to go on. And somebody had a bright idea. There is this bin with half rotten and half good potatoes. You find a good one. Now, if you have an open wound, so my hand was like that. So another prisoner saw me, and he said, what happened? So I told him. He said, I am a surgeon, we had an hour to get from work to our barrack. And he said, if you come straight to my barrack tomorrow, I will operate on it. So I went there, and he put me on a table, and he said to somebody else, sit on her arm, because we don't have anything to deaden it. But after 2 cuts, I was out.
Wow.
And when I woke up, I heard him say, she might use her hand again, but never her finger. So I tried all the time. That's still my exercises. My finger, that's all I do. So that was, and then I worked, because my mother was in the camp, they sent me outside. Because if I would escape, they would kill her, so you don't do that. So I worked at the farm, planting seeds. But I forget to tell you, while I had this, there was one boy that worked at the farm, and when he came back in the camp, he always, for a whole week, he had a hard-boiled egg for me. He stole the egg and put it in the, for the pigs, you know, the slab, and to boil it. And they never caught him. He said he did it because he used to know my brother. That's possible. So, and after that, I worked in the woods, cutting trees. Wow. And that was not, they didn't give you the right instruments. We had a saw that big, or a bile, you know, with this. And that was hard work, but not too bad. But then after the tree was down, you had to bring it somewhere. You be a teenager that doesn't get to eat and carry these heavy trees. My back went. You know, not there. I still later. I paid for it. No, and then when the Canadians came, we thought we could go, or at least we could get to eat. But they were smart. They knew if you start eating right after being hungry so long, it's no good. So they had reservations.
I think a lot of people died because of that.
Yes, and you could go home if where you came from was liberated. So.
That was 1945.
That's 45, yes.
Right.
And when we got home, we couldn't get in our house. That's normal. But the reason we couldn't get in was they made a prison out of it. And they had all the Nazis there in prison. So we stayed 3 months with neighbors until the house was empty and then before you had it livable again. Quite a bit. So, and what else? You want to know more?
So you moved back into your home after they...
Yeah, after
the prisoners out of there.
Yeah.
And what happened next then?
No, next, what I did, I helped a friend out in his office.
So at this time you were still with your mother?
Yeah, my mother. I was with my mother. And my aunt and cousin lived next door. We have a community yard. So, I mean, the 4 of us were always together. So I didn't want to go back to school. That was stupid, of course. But then I thought, I'm out of it so long, and then you go back to school with kids 4 and 5 years younger, and you forget so much. So, but I'm a good liar. When I was here, I decided to go to City College in Long Beach. And I go there and do you have high school? With a straight face, yes. show any papers. I can't. They got lost when we came here. But I can give you the address of the high school. And I knew that high school was bombed the last week of the war. So there were no papers. So I had to do tests. And all I had to take was remedial English. I mean, my no schooling was as good almost as the high school. So.
What percentage of the kids in school were Jewish? What percentage of the kids?
Where I was at the college, at the village, let's see, I can't see it. And we were with 4 or 5.
5 out of a full room?
No, 5 of the whole school.
Oh, in the whole school.
Small village, yes. So. Some people were smart, went back to school, but... And it did bother me for a long time. Until I met people that went back to school and are engineers and doctors. And that's the only thing they know.
Yes.
You know, anything else, don't talk to them about it. So. And I have a son, they can't find out what his IQ is. He runs off the scale. And he doesn't have patience to talk to stupid people. Uh-huh. And I said, but Max, you talk to me. Mother, you don't have any schooling, but you are intelligent. I said, that means a lot coming from you.
But you have common sense.
Yeah, but then, you know what... This is what just what the other one said was opposite. When they were about this high, my mother-in-law said, where did you two get your brains? And the 5-year-old said, from my mother. And she didn't like that. So he said, must be, because there's nothing left. He saw her face.
So where did you meet your husband?
I met my husband at we had a dance at Hanukkah and things like that in certain cities. So in one city where the sister of my father lived, there was going to be a Hanukkah dance. And so I went over to stay with her. And I had a male cousin there, 2 years older than I am. And somebody rang the bell, and I opened up, and there's this man standing, or that boy. He came to stay there for the dance. But he came from the same city. I had relatives. I didn't know him. And my cousin there was his best friend. And he had his brother was, something happened while he was born. Couldn't walk, couldn't so. And, but he went to school. And then one of my cousins there was the same age. And they sat them next to each other so she could help him. The other Jewish girl.
Keep your eye on this area when you get a chance.
No, and when we got married, we lived 7 years with my in-laws because you couldn't get a house in Holland. That was in 1948.
What town was that?
Nijkerk.
How do you spell that?
Nijkerk. So then.
How long did you live there? How long?
6, 7 years we lived there, yes. And wasn't easy because this talk about mother-in-laws from hell, I had one. She never forgave her son for being a boy when he was born. Even in his mid-20s, she still didn't forgive him. She had wanted a girl.
Oh.
That's cute, huh? Yeah.
So what happened next after you were married? Where did you go?
We went there to Nijkerk and stayed there, and then we decided we are leaving, and so we tried. We asked the same time for Canada, America, and Australia. What first comes up, we go. So America came up first. So we came here.
Did you have any families in America? Any part of your family?
No. We found out later that an aunt and a cousin of my mother lived in New York, but they had gone after the war too, and we had never had contact with them. When in New York we got in contact, but no, we didn't have any relatives. But
Where's your mother at that time?
my mother came with me. I couldn't leave her alone. She was 40 when she had me, so she wasn't a young woman.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So we lived 3 years in New York.
Where in New York?
Lake Forest. Forest Hills. I get it mixed up. In Queens. Yeah. And...
Was your husband, did he find a job there?
Yes. Both of us did about anything we could get. He worked for Macy's, and I worked for Gimbel's. And afterwards he could find a job that paid better in a rubber factory, so he had a night job there. And then he had a job delivering toys for a big toy store in a very expensive neighborhood in New Jersey somewhere. So he did that. And then he found out about a job in Texas. And they said after he was there a certain time and they saw that he worked out, they would bring the family over. So we did that. And then his boss said, tell your family to come. So I give up the apartment and the kids out of school. And then the head office in New York said, no, we hadn't given the okay.
Oh.
So I found a place, not too far from where we lived, there was a doctor, and he didn't use the house, only downstairs for his offices, so I rented the upstairs from him. But that's only a couple of months because my husband quit, and he went to California. And
did you know someone in California that he made that trip?
No, you don't
He
have
just thought
to.
that was a good place to go.
What?
He thought it was a good place to go.
Yeah, but I found out you're better off many times with friends than with family if you depend on them.
Yes.
So we came, and then he got a job with Sears, and we came here. Couldn't find a place to live because of the 2 little boys. And we found a house in North Hollywood. And we lived there for a year. And then we moved to Anaheim. And we were there 10 years. And then 29 years in San Juan Capistrano. And now I am 15 years here in Santa Ana.
You're happy here.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about your boys. What are they doing now?
My youngest lives with me. He had a wonderful, good-paying job, but he had a wife that spent more than came in. And she had credit cards he didn't even know. And when he lost his job because that whole department went, she left him because there was no more money to spend. So he didn't have a penny left, and he had money when he got into the marriage. And my husband was so sick at the time, so I told him, why don't you come home and help me take care of your father? So 6.5 years ago, he came home, and he's still there, because he's not that well. He has sciatic arthritis for 45 years already, and gets worse and worse. He almost lives on ice cream and yogurt. He has it in his jaws too, and if that acts up, he cannot chew. That hurts. They want something soft. And of course you can have soup and things, but that's hot, but that cold feels good for him. So I go and buy ice creams, these big ones, 5 or 6 at a time. And then they ask me, are you going to have a party? No. And my other son lives in Holland. So. But he's nice enough to come twice a year. Yeah.
That's good.
That's good, yeah. Because I can't go there. They live so small, I can't stay with them. Or I have to stay in a hotel close by, that I have done. Or friends tell me that I still have to come and stay with us. But that is an hour by train or 2 hours by train. I don't come for them. I will visit them, but I come for my son. So now he comes twice a year.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
So this sounds good. I think we're... So your interview brings you right up to today.
Today, yes.
Okay. I want to thank you so much for
You are welcome.
And I think hopefully you'll look forward to the next step, which is sitting for a life mask. Thank you.
Thank you. I always say, I know a man, he was 6 when he came out of concentration camp. He was in an extermination camp. And after the people were gassed, they were laid out. And the little kids had to go and look if they had gold teeth. And if they had gold teeth, they had to take them out. And he came back when he was 6. And everyone always says, that is such a strange man. And I say, wouldn't you be strange? And then his parents didn't understand him. That's the worst part. But at least his grandparents did. And I had one friend. She was in Westerbork, had a baby. And she and the baby went to Auschwitz. And after a couple of weeks, they took the baby and dismembered it in front of her.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, I mean, those things.
It's so hard to believe that.
Yeah. And then I said, well, what am I complaining about?
Yes. Thank you. God, you came out of it okay mentally and physically.
Mentally, I don't know. They tell me I'm crazy.